Welcome to Holy Ghosting, a podcast about deconstruction and the cult of YWAM. I'm Lindsay Stranigan.
I'm Meg Weber.
I'm Sarai Johnson.
And today is our fourth part of our YWAM series. And this has been kind of a wild ride. I think originally we said we were going to do one episode about just YWAM and kind of like share my story and Lindsay's sibling stories and, just talk a little bit, like an hour. Turns out this subject, too huge. There are too many people's lives who have been affected. And, it all started with our conversation in part one with DL about the foundations of Loren Cunningham's vision. These kids, white kids, washing over all the continents in the earth to take them over for Jesus. And if you missed that episode, please go back and listen to it. The foundational elements of this organization are appalling. I thought churches had poor leadership organization structures. YWAM takes the cake.
The Lord don't have. Yeah, they don't have structure. They don't have a plan. They got nothing. They got the Lord. They got white. I love how you almost said whitewashing when you're talking about the waves. Like, that's truly what it was. We're just whitewashing the planet for Jesus is what that's their whole philosophy. Yeah, we get into it with DL, like the 7 Dominion mandate, that whole thing. We talk a bit about the founder, Loren Cunningham, and how they've branched into various areas, mercy ships and their weird DTSs that sound like romance novels. I don't know.
The University of the Nations and kind of their spiritual gifting classes that you can take.
Spoiler alert, not a university, not an accredited university.
Yeah.
Right.
What was the one Christian college that will take their credits?
Oh, yeah. There was.
Karen told us this in part
I feel
3.
like
I don't
it's
know.
Liberty or something horrible like that.
Yes, probably. Let's just say Liberty. So if you go to the University of the Nations, you have one college that you can go to afterwards that will accept
and
those
it's the
credits.
worst one. Just kidding. It's not the worst one. There's some worse ones, I bet. Bob Jones seems like a really weird place. Hey,
True.
We'll talk about universities sometime.
And I loved how in that episode, we kind of all got to get an education from the knowledge that each of us brought to it. So if you're new to YWAM, if you know somebody who went, if it's an organization that you just don't really know anything about, go listen to part 1. And part 2 is where I share my story, parts of what my personal experiences going onto a DTS, traveling on God's dime to multiple continents, countries. And when I experience an assault in a foreign country, I talk about the lack of supports and the lack of trauma-informed conversation, the harms that were done continually after that event because of the messiness in the way that the leadership just did not know what to do, how to help. And that's a big problem. It's a big problem because I was 19 years old and really needed support from the people that were supposed to be in charge. And I think when an organization that is taking young people to foreign countries who've probably never been before, a lot of the kids are homeschooled or go to Christian school, they're in very private, small communities. And then they're put into situations that no one is prepared for. And so that's what we're going to hear about more today is other listener stories. People have bravely shared with us, and we're just happy to provide a space for them. We believe them. We know that their stories are true, that these experiences happen to them, and that these are things that need to be brought into the light, which is what we did in our conversation with Karen from the Deconversion Therapy podcast. If you didn't listen to part 3, we spent an hour with her where she gets to share her story from a different perspective. From years and years later, she went from a YWAMer to an atheist, and she is now able to share some of her experiences that were horrifying, I would describe them as.
And also told in Karen's hilarious way. Like, this all sounds crazy heavy, but the way that she talks about it is just, she's a delight. Also, her and her husband met in YWAM, got married, and have deconverted together. They call themselves an atheist miracle. Like, well worth your time to go back and listen. She's a delight, even though her stories are not delight. Like the thing about Meg's story and Karen's stories that we shared, like they're hard to listen to at points because you want to like claw your eyeballs out. I don't know. Punch a wall, like anything, like because they're maddening, but they're also so important because there is a through line through all of these stories, and as that is how the organization of YWAM is failing the young people that come and join and have this belief that God is in control and they can go do anything, and turns out like without actual trauma informed care or any real leadership hierarchy or any thing other than just guilting children into doing what you want them to do. It turns out it's not great. It's pretty harmful to a lot of people.
I feel like it's pretty safe to say that almost all evangelical institutions are proudly not trauma informed. Like trauma gets you closer to God or something. I mean,
or honestly, at least gives you a good testimony, right?
Yeah, you have to experience hardship. Suffering is going to give you good character. Like that is
it brings in the money too.
It brings in the money, absolutely. And it's also kind of this, again, like not just the dominionist perspective, but the full kind of discovery doctrine shit that we have perpetuated, and that has created a lot of colonization. We're perpetuating that not only in other countries, but within the young people who grow up in this religion. And so it just seems like if you use trauma-informed anything in that space, that leaves you no more room for, well, it's all or nothing. You're either saved and forgiven of all your sins, and therefore you like try to behave yourself. But if you make a mistake, you don't really need to be accountable to it because it can be absolved. Or it's like all accountability all the time. You know, and I think there's, thanks for saying that thing about trauma informed.
And I'm sad to say that the stories that we're going to hear today from listeners reinforce those experiences. And we're going to hear from another woman who experienced an assault while she was on base and had a very similar experience to mine, where she was not supported in any way. And the harm, especially in never talking about the experience and pretending like it didn't happen. And then we get to hear some YWAM adjacent stories. It kind of reminds me of Karen's experience in Plumline, where she talks about someone coming to her to inform her that she has been the object of their sinful thoughts. And there's not a safe enough place where that would be okay for someone to come up and say that to me. And
or anyone ever. You should just not.
It's not my business what you do in your free time with your body. Like, enjoy your thoughts. Don't tell me about them. I don't need it.
And this listener never went to YWAM. But this Plumline experience had seeped its way into her mainstream youth group. That story will get your blood boiling. And I'm sad because it's not just the stories of one person being affected. We also are going to hear a lot of other stories of the very standard YWAM bullshit of unsafe experiences, denying yourself and your own needs, and listening only to God who speaks through your leadership for every decision that you're about to make. And, we got to bring a little bit of the humor. So we will hear about some wild experiences that happen on mission trips, particularly one of working in a foreign men's prison where the work assignments for the students were shocking. This story got me mouth agape for like the majority of the conversation. And I can't wait for y'all to hear it. We are so thankful for everyone who was brave enough to share their experience, to talk loudly and boldly about the wrongs and the harms that YWAM has and continues to perpetrate, not only to the people in the countries that they are sending waves of young people into, but also to these young people, these young boys, girls, young men, young women who are going into these places and experiencing trauma while also creating trauma for others. It's a thing that we feel passionately about because it's not okay. And it's things that we all participated in different ways throughout our youth and our young lives. And we're saying we were wrong. We need this to stop. There's got to be other ways. Mutual aid, anyone? How about we support people in those ways? Mutual aid isn't the only way. Universal health care is not the only way. We can have gardens. We can share produce with our neighbors. We can have too many chickens so that we have a plethora of eggs.
Hey, we can just help people out when we see a need.
You don't have to raise support from strangers and friends to fly across the world to help someone. And I think too, just like talking about these stories so many years later, I think is helpful to remind us of like what we have come out of. And that came from a good place. It came from a place of wanting to help people, but instead like we were harmed and we also did harm. And so I think just living in that tension and accepting that and knowing that like we were young, we were lied to by an organization who preyed on people who did not have their prefrontal cortexes formed. We were babies. I say this as if I've done a DTS. I did not do a fucking DTS.
I didn't either. And I
so fucking proud.
It's the continuing ability to mold people who have been so sheltered that they're, like DL said, like so sheltered that they're either there because they're like true believers or they've been sent there because they're a problem. And so it's funny because like mixing those populations is such a mind fuck for everyone.
It's not great. Involved. It's not a great. It's like half of the people there are kids who their parents want to fix them. YWAM's gonna like fix their like rebel child, and the other half are people who've never like seen a drug in their life, you know, who've never heard of drugs. Just like homeschool horse girls represent. So yeah, it's a really weird and toxic stew, honestly, that happens. And then they're led by 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are on fire for God and think that they have all the answers, that God is speaking through them and that they have the truth for your life. And let me tell you right now, nobody has the truth for your life except for you. Ever.
That's right.
So,
that's right. 100%.
Amen.
Yeah. While we go down YWAM memory lane here with these people, like, know that all of these people are out. They're out of the cult. That's why they're listening to Holy Ghosting. That's why they're ghosties and they're sharing with us. Like, we went through some shit in our days, but like, thank the Lord for therapy and for community and that we can all process this trauma together.
Wow. We laughed. We cried. We did all the feelings. Thank you for sharing those stories with us, ghosties. It's so important for us to be able to share what has happened to us and tell the truth about that. It makes it safer for other people to do that as well. And it makes us more aware and to be able to tell sooner when we're in a place or a system that is unsafe or not made for us. And so I am really glad that all of y'all have gotten out of that. And I hope anyone that's still in there is able to also flee the building. I just think it's really valuable and important for us to recognize that it does take a lot of courage to talk about this stuff. And I hope that part of what we all get to do together is make the world safer for people to tell the truth about what's going on with this rogue religion that's really causing damage all across the world, not just here in America where we feel it a lot and it's happening and it's fucking terrible. Goodbye, Roe v. Wade. It's scary in our country too, but it is beyond just our country, way beyond. And so we really get to take responsibility for ourselves and be accountable for ourselves and do better, make it better.
And in taking responsibility for ourselves and the harm that we did also cause, also can find ways to find peace, to know that we are making changes in ourselves and that will change the world around us. And that it is not just on us to change the world. Remember to take time for you to find your peace, to find your joy, and be in your happy places too.
And sometimes that joy is as simple as talking shit about toxic systems like YWAM. We do take pleasure in that, even though it's painful sometimes. Like peeling back those layers, it's like good. And now we're going to have it out of our system and we're never talking about YWAM again. Just kidding. We probably will, but probably not 4 episodes. Yeah, one episode turned into 4 because turns out there's a lot to say about YWAM. So thank you for sticking with us through this series. We know that at times it's tough to get through. Who knew about chicken butchering for the Lord? That's like a new thing that I learned about. And we even have a listener who submitted a different story about chicken butchering that didn't make it in here.
We had
there's multiple
stories about chicken butchering. I don't understand what the call was. Like, hi, Lauren, we have a lot of places that need chickens butchered. Do you have any young people for us?
Well, do I ever?
Sure do.
Well, they're also going to take over the arts and entertainment sphere and
yes, the spheres of influence. The chicken sphere of influence apparently is a large sphere.
It's a big one.
Didn't know. Yeah.
Sphere.
So
yeah, who knew?
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about different kinds of bird poop before we
That's
on
true.
this recording.
That's our next series. Everybody, get ready. How's your poop? That's not true. We're not going to make you do that. But we are going to start talking about sex more again because that's even more fun than talking about YWAM.
Because we didn't talk about or think about or do sex for many, 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 many years of our lives.
Decades.
And now we
could say that, right?
Huge mistake. Yeah,
yes. Huge. Life's biggest regrets for all of us all around. But yeah, our next episode, so it's going to be Pride Month, y'all. And we are going to tell our queer stories because turns out we're a very queer podcast.
Who knew?
Not when I started. I didn't know.
Surprise.
Nope. That's true. Surprise. We're gay.
Podcast will turn you gay. Everyone knows that. If you host a podcast, you turn gay eventually. So
this is the gay agenda.
Trajectory.
Yep. The
this
gay
is
agenda
the gay
is
agenda.
Everyone host a podcast, then you'll be so gay.
Yeah. At least a deconstruction podcast. Yeah. Like once you tiptoe out of the fold, automatically gay.
Hey, everyone. I'm just kidding. Nothing can make you gay, but you might notice you're gay if you have any open-heartedness to seeing yourself.
Yeah. So we haven't really talked about our own stories of our realizations of those parts of ourselves that were definitely hindered for a long time. So tune in. Pride Month, we got some fun things coming down. We will have our conversation about our queer stories. We also have a conversation with sex evangelicals. We're going to have some fun bonus content for Patreon coming out. We get into the lesbian master doc, and that will be for patrons only. So if you want to go over there and subscribe, Holy Ghosting is on Patreon. You can subscribe there for free. You don't have to be a paid member, but I will say we are planning some fun content coming out. And we recently hired an editor. Josh, thank you, Josh, for all you do.
Hi, Josh rules.
You're one of the only Joshes we love.
That's right.
It's true.
You get a Josh exemption.
Josh. Yeah. You are not a youth pastor, and for that we are grateful. Josh is doing great work for us. He takes some of the work off of our plate so we can focus on getting episodes out, recording, booking speakers, being silly on TikTok. So if you guys can financially support us for $5 a month, that would be huge in helping us continue to keep Josh on board as our rad editor. So thank you for your support. If you got $5 a month, we'll gladly take it.
And you can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, where you can also get the subscriber-only things that we put out on Patreon if you become a Spotify subscriber. We are so grateful for everybody who can rate, review, share the podcast. We did our first live stream, and even though we had to get through some technical difficulties as per the usual,
and it was high times with the Most High. And let me tell you, the high part doesn't really lend to solving technical difficulties.
That's true. Yeah. Sorry. This is going to be fun to watch us bumble around as 3 high adult women who really are trying.
But
we
you guys
had
showed
a lot
up.
of fun.
Yeah, and you asked really good questions and heavy questions. And
I hope
we really
did them
enjoyed
justice.
So if you missed it, go to our YouTube page. You can find shorts there. You can find all of our video episodes and our live stream. And we're going to be doing lots more over there. So if you are a person who enjoys YouTube over, say, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, just know we're there too. We're also on all those other places. So come find us on the internet. We'd love to hang out. You get to see a little less of our heavy side and a little more of just like our regular ridiculous selves. So we hope to see you out there, ghosties. Have a good one.